Before we get started, make sure to turn on post notification and subscribe to the channel. 10 former WWE stars that Triple H wants to return. Number 10. Rich Swann. When 205 Live first came out, Triple H pushed Rich Swann as one of the top stars on the show, making sure he got plenty of time on the Purple brand as well as on Monday Night Raw, and that helped him get over with the audience. Situations in his personal life forced WWE's hand to release him, but that problem has since been resolved, and Swann is back to his best working for Impact Wrestling and MLW, and amongst other companies. With Triple H now back in charge of 205 Live and the brand going from strength to strength, there's no doubt that the game would like to bring back one of the biggest names in its history to add even more strength and depth to the roster. Number 9. Justin Gabriel. Justin Gabriel was never really given much of a chance in WWE outside of his run with Nexus and the subsequent group, The Core, and therefore a lot of people forget about just how talented Gabriel is as a wrestler. Sure, he has given tag team runs as well, but once those groups ran dry, his time in WWE really fizzled out, which shouldn't have been the case for someone as highly skilled as him, something which he has proved since leaving the company. Nowadays, Gabriel's style would likely fit in better with WWE, especially on NXT or 205 Live, where the high pace and high flying action is all the rage, which is why Triple H would certainly be open to a return for him. Number 8. Emma. When the news hit about Emma being released from WWE, it took a lot of people by surprise. She had always been an excellent worker and someone who seemed to fit on the roster, which is why it hasn't been a shock to see her thriving on the independent scene. It was clear Vince McMahon never bought into her in the same way as Triple H though, as when Emma was in NXT, she is one of the biggest female stars, whereas on the main roster, she was never treated that way, which is likely why Vince let her go. However, with Triple H getting more and more control of the main roster, especially the women's division, he would certainly welcome back someone of Emma's talent, especially in her old NXT heel gimmick, which works so well. Number 7. Batista. The fact that Triple H is the man that Batista wants to have his retirement match should tell you exactly why the game would be willing to welcome his former Evolution member back with open arms. Triple H is someone who does enjoy the spotlight, and getting to have that moment at WrestleMania with the Animal is something that he wouldn't want to deny. It seemed like it was going to happen at WrestleMania 35 after the SmackDown 1000 tease, but due to Hunter's pectoral injury, those plans have likely been scrapped. While it might not happen in New York, Batista is certainly going to have one more run with the company, and Triple H will be the man at the helm of making that happen, finishing up with a match against himself. Number 6. Evan Bourne. Evan Bourne had a fairly good run during his time with WWE, putting on some fantastic matches, and was arguably a little ahead of his time as his in-ring style wasn't really as popular in WWE as it is today. Nowadays, the vast majority of WWE's roster moves around the ring like Bourne, who's one of the best high flyers in wrestling history, and he claimed during an interview with Chris Van that WWE wanted him for 205 Live, showing that Triple H has interest. Since leaving WWE, Bourne has only improved his in-ring abilities, and because Triple H is clearly a fan of that style, it would make sense for him to be brought back at some point, as he could add some real quality once again. Number 5. Wade Barrett. Wade Barrett was a man who had all the tools to be a major player in WWE, and if it wasn't for such poor booking during his time as the Nexus leader, he likely would have gone on to become the WWE champion at some point. Sadly, things didn't work out for him, and in the end, he spent the majority of his career in the mid-card, where he was a very entertaining heel, constantly refreshing his gimmick in order to stay relevant. With Barrett no longer wanting to work a full-time schedule, Triple H would likely want to open the door to Barrett for a new role with the company as part of the NXT UK roster. This would allow Barrett a lighter schedule, and while adding a major TV name to the show, a winning situation for everyone. Number 4. Adam Rose. Triple H invested a lot of time into Adam Rose, and was no doubt disappointed when it didn't work out for him on Monday Night Raw. The game gave Rose a lifeline after his Leo Kruger character fell apart, and he helped ensure that it worked in NXT. However, once he lost full control of the character, things started to unravel for him, and Rose quickly became just a comedy act whose future was never going to last very long, and sadly that was exactly the case. But that doesn't mean that Hunter still doesn't see potential and star power in Rose, and he would likely allow him to return if everything lined up properly, potentially even in his old Kruger gimmick, which fans could take a little more seriously. Number 3. Neville. WWE's treatment of Neville was poor to say the least, never fully giving the king of the cruiserweights the respect that he deserves as a top superstar, but Triple H was certainly a fan of him, that's for sure. The Game was the first man in WWE to give Neville his major push, letting him become the NXT champion, a booking that eventually led him to the main roster call-up and then his run on 205 Live, another show that Triple H created. However, it was Vince McMahon in charge of the purple brand during Neville's run, and that eventually led him to walking out on the company, but Triple H recognized his talent and what he had to offer, and therefore he would be shown as a bigger star if he were to return. Number 2. Cody Rhodes. Everyone knows how close Dusty Rhodes and Triple H were, with the Dream being a real mentor of Hunter's, helping him to get NXT off the ground and to the place where it's today, which is one of the main reasons he will want Cody back in the company to honor his father. On top of sentimental reasons, Cody has left WWE and become one of the biggest names in wrestling, headlining major shows everywhere he goes, including running his own sellout event in the form of All In. Cody is a name that WWE is desperate to sign, with Triple H likely to push him straight to the main roster as a top name alongside his elite group. But unlike others on this list, Rhodes might not be willing to just walk back. Number 1. Austin Aries. The only reason Austin Aries left WWE in the first place was because he wasn't happy with how he's being booked, believing that he should have had a run with the Cruiserweight Championship at some point after his feud with Neville. Back then, Vince McMahon was in charge of the show, which has now obviously changed, and with Triple H back in charge, Aries might be more willing to make a return, especially since his Impact Wrestling career has come to an end. Triple H put a lot of time and effort into Aries, taking him from NXT to 205 Live's commentary in order to keep him working while he was injured, and then ensured he had a match at WrestleMania, clearly because he was a fan of his work, meaning he would take him back in a heartbeat.